I thought you guys would be carrying it.
No, not yet.
I've got my own line of hardware equipment. So let's dive into it. How cool is the Epson 2000? There it is over there. Now this is Epson's top of the range 64-inch 1.5 meter G-Clay printer using pigment inks using the Shore color system. I previously had the Epson 11880, which was probably released in 07. I was the first person in Australia to get one. It's been going strong ever since, but as some of you may know, it's recently stopped working. So this was 10 years in the making, and it was the first machine to replace the 11880. So there was no replacement. This is it. The only other 64-inch printer that Epson make. Now, Canon only go up to 60 inches. You might think that 4 inches or 10 centimeters doesn't mean much. And I did look hard at the Canon printers, but in the end I decided that I've had such a great run with my Epsons. I've been selling prints from Epson machines. I think the first one I got was 2005, and I've never had a print returned due to a printing error. Not one ever, not once. So very happy with Epson, and very happy to continue to use Epson. So today we're printing about 50 or 60 prints for a corporate order going into a hotel. And this is a great opportunity to have a look at how the new Epson works. It's supposed to print twice as fast if we're printing on the same modes. Now that's fantastic because my prints take about 8 minutes to print each. So twice as fast would be 4. Let's see if that's true. Haven't done any time trials yet, but I can tell you that the prints that have been coming out of the machine are looking spectacular, and I'm pretty excited about this technology that is 10 years more advanced than the machines I've been using previously. This is a 10 ink machine, 5 of them, plus one I haven't used yet, plus a maintenance tank. So just there is sort of $1,500 worth of ink by turning it on. Alrighty, that's it, ready to go. The other thing I've got to do is change the paper, which lives in here. That double beep is we're ready to rumble. Now we need to release and remove paper. This is a 24-inch Luster 300 GSM, beautiful archival paper. I've been printing on this for years, about as good quality as you can get for this type of machine. One thing I love about this machine is that it creates a barcode. This is a non-spindle system. It's much easier on the weight side of things because the spindles are metallic and heavy and run all the way from one end to the other. And that's what the paper used to sit on. It's how it sits in the printer. And they came up with this new system where you just, I don't even know what they call them. Let's call it a caddy. I'm sure they have a name. Or miniature spindle. And these things, they just do that and come off, and they're small. So way better than a super long spindle. So the other thing I love about this machine is the barcode. What this barcode tells the printer, and it prints it itself, is it tells it how long the paper has got to go, and actually what sort of paper it is, whether it's a canvas or a luster or whatever. And so when you put it back in the machine, you don't have to tell the machine. And this is great, and not all printers do that. I also love this thing here, which I forget to use. You sit your paper on it whilst you're putting your mini spindles in, and it just keeps everything nice and neat. And what we try and do is optimize the prints to match the paper. So all of my print sizes are based on substrate sizes and getting the best paper usage out of them. Okay. We've got to tell the printer that we're putting some roll paper in, pop it in until it beeps. It says that's enough, and go, yes, I'd like you to load, thank you very much. It auto loads, and this is the easiest auto loading system I've had as well. The previous one you had to thread it through until it popped out the bottom here. You had to get it to exactly the right spot, and all of that was quite hard, whereas this machine does all the hard work for you. It's just checking how long the paper is. It's just popped it out at the bottom here. And this window here at the top is a new thing as well. There was no window at the top with the 11880, the window was at the front. So it's much easier to watch what's going on. So right now it's just checking the length, the width, exactly where it's sitting in the print area. So this process probably takes about a minute. Still thinking, okay. What this is asking is this paper the same as the previous paper? And yes, it is. The default is a premium luster 260 GSM. I'm actually using 300, but it works the same. So we go keep those settings. How long is it? This is how it knows to begin with. Yes, it is 12 meters long. A book order here that I have to pack as well. All right, so we want to print 5 of these ones. So many paper sizes. That's because once you save this file and open it again, it'll remember those settings, because it was remembering the settings from the previous printer, the 11880. So off we go, where the printing has begun. Okay, we've already started printing. That's how quick off the mark it is. That's printing very sprightly. We pile them up over here where I was packing books the other day, if you saw that video. If you click on the button in the top right of the screen, you can see some work I've been doing on a book. We pack them, wrap them, and send them off. This is a 10 ink printer. There's vivid light magenta, cyan, grey, light cyan, photo black, matte black, dark grey, yellow, and vivid magenta. So there is actually 4 blacks, 4 shades of grey. Well, there's black and 3 shades of grey, which means it's got 1 more shade of grey than the 11880. The 11880 had 9 colours, this has 10, so that's the extra colour. So it means black and white prints are even better than they were before. And otherwise we've got, you know, basically CMYK, except you've got light cyan and you've got light magenta. The 11880 was an amazing printer, and this is following in its footsteps. The new ink formula is supposed to dry quicker, it's supposed to be tougher. We use a little bit less ink, and the inks are a little bit cheaper. So all of these things are advantageous for swapping between the 11880 and the 20,000. I had the 11880 with the take-up spool, which is not there at the moment. We have this tray that captures the prints. Now the take-up spool is pretty much only used for canvas, not really for prints, unless I'm doing prints that are super wide, which I do a few of. The take-up spool is an extra $2,500 in this country, so I thought I would just hold off. And I'm happily living without it, but I'll probably get it next month, and then we can talk about the take-up spool. But it basically automatically winds, once the canvas is printed, it automatically winds it back onto another roll, and then you can just pull it all off and cut it when you're ready. Whether you're doing a 1 meter canvas or a 50 centimeter canvas, you can get between 10 and 20 on one roll. You can put it all in the print spool. It all comes out. You don't have to touch it or cut it or do anything. It's fantastic. Yeah, so what else can I tell you about this printer? The take-up spool, which I will be getting, means you can walk away from the machine. Look, it's never recommended to walk away from the machine because things can happen. Paper gets stuck, ink runs out. Both things cause problems. It's better to hang around, but it's low touch and you're not handling the images as much, which is a good thing, because right now is when they're the least stable. The ink starts to dry instantly. I would say it's still slightly IC banding, so we are going to stop. These printers have a lot of these little moments where they check and calibrate. They do it all the time. What are they doing? Who knows? I often feel they're a little bit like cats. You know, they just sit and have a little preen, little clean, little check, spend some time in the sun. Still telling me to wait. Please wait. Okay, and still waiting. Still waiting. It might be doing an auto nozzle check, and I can see yes. So what you would do want to do a clean. Light grey is flashing here. It's good to see Epson has updated the packaging on these cartridges. They use less cardboard and less packing in general. That's the colour we're doing, by the way. Light grey. There's no clear recycling program for these things. There's a company called Officeworks that takes them, but I have no idea what they do with them. I'm not sure it's anything useful. Now, a little pointer is you're supposed to give these things a gentle shake when you get them out. Now, where is this? This is number 4, so it's over in the left. There are ink tanks on both sides of the machine. Full-size cartridges versus so they're the ones I've replaced already, versus the ones that ship with the machine. So out come these tiny, look how tiny it is. And in go with a nice satisfying click, full size. So you can see the cyan and the vivid light magenta are still running. So the printer recognises, of course, when the cartridge is in, but I will show you the test strip. So that does bring me to another point. One part of what makes this printer so much quicker is the fact that it has a much, much larger print head. It's sort of this big instead of being this big. It's more than double the size. So we've got a little status bar here, cleaning, 2%, 3%, 4%, 1,000, around 300 seconds, so 5 minutes as it's cruising along. You might be wondering, why get such a big printer? So a desktop printer is A3 or A2, around a 17-inch printer, and that's all you can get on the desktop size printers. So they're pretty small prints. I commonly print like these. You'll see the next ones take up the full sheet, just under 24 inches. So that's the 24-inch standing printers. But then about half as common is the next sizes up, where say 90 centimeters or almost 3 feet, 36 inches on the short edge, and that happens fairly often. And then probably something like 10 to 20 times a year, I get things that are above the 36 or 44 inch, 90 centimeter, around 110 centimeter sizes. So things that are the 1.5 meter or 1.2 meter on the short edge. And the thing is, the difference in the cost of these machines, I think, was about $2,000. So you don't have to do many prints in-house before that difference is absorbed, because otherwise the machines are the same. And if you've got the space for it, why not? And it has meant that I can create pieces of art in-house exactly to my standards. I don't have to rely on other people. I don't have to go to and from a lab, a printing lab. And I can be an artist and just experiment and play. And I do sometimes print, let's talk meters. So it'd be 1.5 meters by 2.5 meters. And I just do it for myself, especially out of the Hasselblad. I can print things that size and you still can't see pixelation. And that's to do with the size of the camera. It's also to do with the engine that Epson has created. It might seem extravagant having a machine like this. My previous machine paid for itself so many times over, it's not funny. Of course, the ink is expensive, and we'll see how the ink runs on this, whether it does actually go further than the 11880. The most important thing is to use these machines on a weekly basis to ensure the heads stay clean and they keep running, which is what I've been doing since I installed it. And I'm hoping this machine lasts me at least another 10 years. You know, might almost see out my desire to do printing on this scale. Because look, when you're working with images that size, so if you can imagine, it's as big as a double bed, big as a king or queen size bed. They're very fragile, hard to work with, hard to stretch, hard to frame. Everything's difficult. And at that point, if people are still buying my stuff that large, then yes, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Nozzle check, there we go. At this point, we call up the nozzle check to actually print all the nozzles. Print, check, pattern. There you go. I don't know. That's it, it's done it. Oh, I can see some blocked nozzles from here. That's not very good. So this is an enormous head, and we can see that in the vivid magenta, we have 2 block nozzles. And here we have 1 block nozzle over here in the light grey. So it used to do them in pairs on the other machines. Doing it in pairs here. So we've got to do light grey and vivid magenta and light cyan. Start cleaning. It's quite a different interface to the old machine, and my muscle memory sometimes just kicks in and does things. Alrighty, so we did that dual sets of individual head cleaning, and we can see here, and this all clogged nozzles, and now nozzles not clogged. So nozzle cleaning, well, you know, it happens. Sometimes you can print all day and there's nothing, and sometimes it's not like that. Over here, I put everything down on this table here, and then I assess. Whether it's looking right. I number them to make sure the client knows how many they're getting. So here's the first one that came off, and we are going to bring that other one over in just a minute. It's flying out. Come on. Prints printed at different speeds. The one on the right is super high quality, slowest, 2400 DPI, and the one on the left is 1200 DPI, medium speed. I can't see any difference between them at all. So we are going to go with the higher speed. So this is print number 3. This print is 83 centimeters wide and about 58 57 centimetres high. This is Manly Beach in Sydney, very famous, basically as famous as Bondi Beach, also in Sydney. In regards to how I print, you can get RIP software, and that automates the process a little bit. RIP software costs money, and the bigger your printer, the more it costs. That's how they work out how much to charge you. Not on how many prints you make, but how big your printer is. And if you're an artist more like me, as opposed to being a production house where they might print 10 hours a day non-stop. So there is this software. I don't use it, I don't own it. I just print straight out of Photoshop, and I always have, just using the Photoshop and Epson drivers. Okay, the printer's just stopped, so I reckon one of the ink cartridges is empty. Let's have a look. It's got its red light here, and yes, the ink, two are empty, the light grey and the vivid light magenta. So this is the one we had to open to clean with. So we'll just, that's empty, that's done. That's one. There's the vivid light magenta. Handy sign there, just in case you're not sure how to get the bag open. Always give them a bit of a shake. It says here, 15 times. And to do it like this, actually, 30 times when you bring it out of the bag. 1, 2, 3, 4. There aren't many left. We've only got the cyan there on that side left in the small. Now it'll just start printing. The beauty of this printer is that as long as you don't leave it too long, the photo black, the dark grey and the yellow are still running on the original charging cartridges, the 110s. So it's pretty impressive when you're doing basically a 60 by 90 inch print. And we've done quite a few of them, and I've done a fair bit of printing prior to this. It of course very much depends on what colours you're printing. We're not printing a lot of yellow at the moment, haven't been printing a lot of yellow. So back to the Photoshop thing, yeah, I just use Photoshop. So almost 15 years I've been just using all the variations of Photoshop. Some people complain about the Apple drivers. I don't know, it's all worked for me and I've been very happy with it. And I don't do any scaling. So I let the Epson RIP upscale the images, and I think I get very realistic results from doing that. I've talked to various people about when they're going to print. Here we go, we're cutting off. That's print number 2. Yeah, so I've talked to some people who will actually scale their image in Photoshop. So let's say they want it to be 100 centimeters. So they will just keep scaling it until it's 100 centimeters at the DPI of the printer. So 100 centimeters at 300 DPI or 100 centimeters at 600 DPI. And what you're getting there is Photoshop interpolating. And I found that looks terrible. That's my opinion. As opposed to when Epson prints it, it doesn't try and create resolution that's not there. It's basically, it's printing the dot larger, but doing it in a kind of fuzzy logic way so the dot is not so obvious. You're not changing the original information. This is basically the raw file that is turned into a PSD. That's it. The pixels are still how they were. And I never upscale. The only time I've upscaled is in my book. Pictures were the full spread. Let me grab a book because I'm surrounded by them. Here's my book without a jacket on it. That's almost 80 centimeters. We're talking about 30 inches, something like that. I upscaled those because of the way offset printing works. Is different to how G-clay printing I upscaled, but otherwise I don't do it. I certainly don't do it for this type of printing because I believe that Epson and Canon and whoever else have spent a very long time working on their scaling engines, and having tested both, scaling in Photoshop versus letting the printer's drivers scale, I believe this is far better. That's just me. Now we've got print number 4 coming out. Here they come. They're taking about 4 minutes when they used to take 8. Of course, that doesn't take into account changing ink, changing paper, cleaning nozzles and setting up files. But once you get everything in the spool, which I do have everything in the spool, that's about how long it's got to go. We've got about 27 to go, which means that's about 100 minutes. Of the 6 prints we are doing, this is my least favourite. It's actually got the name of the file here on the printer screen. That's new. Alrighty, we've got to replace another ink cartridges. They're all falling. Dark grey's got to go. Comes. Photographed with the Hasselblad, 68 megapixels of love. And yes, and this is trammed, the black and white cover, photographed in 1992 on Ilford FP4. This tram almost ran me over, and then this tram almost ran me over, because back then I needed to be on a tripod. Number 5. There are 8 of these. Okay, well the paper suddenly ran out. Oh, this stuff's heavy. Okay, so we pop it on here. At this point we've got to be very gentle, of course, because the paper's fragile and costs a lot. When you roll, always be careful. Make sure you've got clean hands. Okay, so there's 8 more to go of the last print. Printing again, just the last copy because we ran out of paper. This is the last one we're going to print. And then the last thing that I will show you is the wrapping and the packing. But this is the Epson 20,000. I love the Stormtrooper looks. I think that's a good thing. It's a hell of a machine. It allows you to put flat substrate through it from the back to the front because the print area is flat. So that means you can print onto mount board and things like that as well, which is pretty amazing. It's definitely twice as fast as my previous machine, but with the same quality, which is a massive saving. So basically what would have been 8 hours of printing today is now 4 hours of printing. Here it is, print number 6. This is of the Sydney Opera House at night on a tripod looking underneath the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's going to take around about an hour to do that. So we really don't have any spare time. Good solid blacks. We're just about to get ready to start packing these. I check each one carefully as it comes off the printer to check for banding or spots. Then they get numbered to make sure I've sent the correct quantity. This is print number 6, the 7th copy. That's looking fantastic. Look at those blacks, rich, deep blacks. Now I pack the prints, I roll them how they want to be rolled, in the direction that they were on the roll. Now this is a big roll. It's going to be tough to roll this and fit it in the box. So we'll see how we go in a minute. 3 more minutes for that last print to come out. 50 to 60 prints. Just have a quick look at it. Looking beautiful. Number it. All right, so what I do is I roll it onto the tube that it comes off, because that's obviously what the manufacturer specifies as being the optimal thickness for this paper. So we're gonna wind it again. It got loose. Because there's a tube in there, we can squeeze super tight. If there's no tube, you don't do this because you crush the print. And I think that might just fit in the box. Obviously we tape it up, which is what the paper ships in, and I reckon that's just gonna work. Amazing. Yep, that's gonna work. Except that fell in there. I prefer not to do this on my own. Wow, that's good work. That's worked perfectly. So that will ship at the same level of safety as the manufacturer normally ships the paper, which is really, really excellent. So yes, there's 51 metre, almost 1 metre sheets of paper. The paper came out of the box and the paper goes back into the box. So everybody, thanks so much for watching today. You saw the Epson 2000 do its thing, print 50 prints in about 4 hours, prints them beautifully, quickly, accurately. Here's 50 prints that are going to be framed and go on the wall of a hotel in Sydney within a couple of weeks. Thanks so much for watching. Please share, please subscribe, please like, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of prints.